Hey guys, before I get started with the review, I want to talk about where I've been for the past 2 weeks. Now, in previous videos, I think I've mentioned that I've been suffering from a little bit of burnout in terms of doing movie reviews, and I just haven't had the same drive that I used to have to put out so much content. And I do want to change that. I do want to eventually get back into the groove of making reviews, but today is not that day, even though I'm doing a review right here. But I do want to say that I have so much going on right now. I'm in grad school, so I'm constantly working on that, doing homework, and I'm so busy from that, as well as I've been trying to save money by not going to the movie theaters to see movies. And so that's why you haven't been seeing many new movie reviews on my channel. But I do want to eventually change that. There are several movies that I do want to see and want to talk about with you guys, but it's just been really rough adjusting to grad school and not being able to talk about it on here. And also, I've just been a little tired and needed to sit back and think a little bit. But with this new season of the Clone Wars coming out, I thought it would be the perfect time to ease back into doing movie reviews by at least doing one a week for you guys, for your viewing pleasure. And since I talked about the Clone Wars in my Year of Star Wars reviews last year, I thought it would be the perfect time to talk about each episode individually of this new season of the Clone Wars, since it is the final season. So anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. So anyway, let's get started with the review. Season 7 begins with this episode called The Bad Batch, which deals with our favorite clone troopers that we've grown to love throughout the Clone Wars, such as Rex, Commander Cody, and others, as they meet up with a new and very different clone trooper team called the Bad Batch, who are basically these clone troopers that have genetic differences than all the other clone troopers, and they look different, sometimes they sound different, and it creates a very different and interesting dynamic in the clone troopers themselves and how they deal with each other. And I overall found this episode to be okay. It's definitely an episode of the Clone Wars. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you guys have watched my review on the 2003 Clone Wars and then the Clone Wars, you guys will probably know that I'm not a huge fan of this show. I don't love it. I do enjoy it. I do like it, but it's just not been something for me. I'm not that interested in it. I do like some of the ideas. I like the storylines, some of them. But I think that this show has definitely improved season by season. Season 6 being the only season that I really legitimately loved. So I was still excited but hesitant for this season going forward, because I really did want to see this show end in spectacular fashion after it was canceled. But overall, this episode, as a premiere for a final season, I was expecting a little bit more. And I'll go into that farther, but I do want to bring up some positives with this episode. And the positives have to be, well, for one, the animation is really good. Now, the Clone Wars animation, when it was on Cartoon Network, was never spectacular or anything. It was just okay. It was average, but it was interesting to look at, and overall, it was fine. But I think the animation has improved drastically. I think it's higher budgeted, and it just looks really good. The colors and the animation itself, the way characters are formed and the way they move is very smooth and not as choppy as it was in previous seasons. So that's good. Also, I like the dynamic between the clone troopers. That's always been a positive I've had with this show. Whereas the clone troopers in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith have not been the greatest of characters. They're just kind of stand-ins and you don't really care about them. This show has developed them into their own distinct personalities to make you really care and identify with each and every one of them. And seeing them dealing with this group called the Bad Batch and how different they are from all of them, it makes for a very interesting dynamic that I liked seeing play off of each other, and it was a lot of fun. I love the Bad Batch in this episode, and especially one of them. I can't remember their name, but one of them looks like Rambo, which was kind of awesome. And also the action in this episode was really thrilling, especially this scene near the end where it's like this one long take of them infiltrating this base. It was thrilling. It was that Star Wars action that I crave for. But overall, I left the episode kind of disappointed. Because with a final season like this, like you're finally getting the chance to finish the story up, I expected a lot more in their first episode, and this just felt like a regular episode of the Clone Wars that I've seen many times before. I feel like I've seen this episode several times before in other seasons of the Clone Wars. And that was what was really disappointing, because I was hoping for something more plot and character driven with the characters such as Anakin or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka or something like that. But this was overall just a standard Clone Wars episode. Now, I do know that this episode is actually based on concept or unfinished animation for an episode that was originally going to be in season 6, and that might be the problem here, is that it's a carryover episode from a previous season, and ultimately I can see that. It definitely feels like old Clone Wars and doesn't feel as focused as the trailers for this season have really shown. But overall, I think it's a solid episode. I was disappointed. It's still nothing special in my opinion, although I do like character interactions. I do like the depth of these clone troopers and what they've done, but really, this show is still not for me. It's still just a solid show that I think people that grew up watching the Clone Wars will really enjoy, and I think they will get the most out of it. I'm going to give Episode 1, The Bad Batch, a 7 out of 10. Well, guys, I want to thank you for watching this review. I hope you enjoyed it, and have you seen The Bad Batch? If you have, tell me your thoughts down below, and if you haven't watched The Clone Wars, I say give it a try. Some people will probably love it. Some people, like me, will probably just find it fine, but I think it is an important part of Star Wars history, and I think it should be watched, because I think people will find different things to like about the show. I'm not going to be here condemning the show, because I do enjoy it, but I just know it's not for me. But I am interested to see what happens after this, where we go, what other stories we have to tell before it finally ends. But anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. I hope you enjoyed this, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.